Nagdulo ko. Ako mag-record. Okay, sige. Good afternoon, pero gusto ko sana i-record. Ayaw ma-record. Bakit kaya? Ayan, okay. So, good afternoon. This time, our topic is focused on digital transformation uh, in the Philippines. No? So, digital transformation refers to the integration of digital technologies into all aspects of government, business, education, and everyday life. Now, in our country, the shift is increasingly seen as essential for modernization and inclusive development. So, from e-governance platforms to online banking and digital health system, digital transformation enables organizations to streamline operations, to improve service delivery, and respond to the demands of the rapid evolving digital economy. So the national government, through its e-government master plan and the Philippine digital strategy, has pushed agencies to digitize their services to better serve citizens and businesses. In public sector, syempre, digital transformation is evident in initiatives such as the ICT, iGovPil, which include cloud infrastructure, government email system, and data sharing framework. Agencies like the BIR have adopted e-filing and e-system payment system, while Department of Education utilized the LMS and DepEd Commons to support distance learning. So the digital tools to make government services more accessible, transparent, and efficient, especially in remote and underserved areas. In the private sector, of course, Filipino businesses particularly micro, small, and medium enterprise have embraced e-commerce, no, digital marketing, and cloud-based tools to survive and grow during the and after the COVID-19 pandemic. Platforms katulad po ng Lazada, Shopee, GCash have enabled local entrepreneurs to reach broader markets and process transaction digitally. So the government digitization of SMEs or MSMEs program also help businesses enhance their online presence and digital capabilities through training and technology grants. And to give us more details about the topic, let us all welcome our next presenters. Go ahead.
Thank you po, Dean. Good afternoon, everyone. Module 4 is about digital transformation in governance. And for this particular module, the reporters will be yours truly, Christian Olasiman and Ma'am Geraldine Monsayak. Our coverage will focus on the definition and importance of digital transformation, stages of digital maturity in government institutions, including case studies of successful digital transformation in government in the Philippines and abroad, and digital public services and citizen-centric governance to also include the role of emerging technologies such as AI, blockchain, IoT in digital governance. So to begin our presentation, we'll give the floor to Ms. Geraldine Monsayak for her presentation.
Thank you, Sir Christian. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, classmate. Good afternoon, Dean Abante. Module 14 is about digital transformation in governance and stages of digital maturity in government institutions. By the end of the module, learners will be able to define the concept of digital transformation in the context of governance. Second is to explain the key technologies driving digital transformation in the public sector. And the third is identify the benefits and challenges associated with implementing digital transformation in government institutions. The fourth is to analyze real-world examples of digital governance initiatives at local, national, or international levels. And the fifth is to evaluate the impact of digital transformation on service delivery, transparency, and citizen engagement. And the last is propose strategies or policy recommendation for effective digital transformation in governance. Definition and importance of digital transformation. Digital transformation in governance refers to the adoption of digital technologies by government agencies to improve the delivery of public services, enhance citizen engagement, streamline internal processes, and foster transparency and accountability. It encompasses a broad range of initiatives that use technology to transform the way government functions, operates, and interacts with its citizens, employees, and other stakeholders. This transformation is guided by national policies and frameworks, notably the Philippine Digital Transformation Strategy of 2022 or the PDTS, which aims to create a transparent, efficient, and citizen-centric e-government. There are key components of digital transformation in governance. One of these is the e-government initiatives. These refer to the use of digital technologies by the government to deliver public services, improve administrative efficiency, and engage citizens. Examples of the platforms launched by the government is the ELGU system. This is a one-stop online platform adopted by 838 local government units to facilitate services like business permits and clearances. One of these is yung katulad sa Quezon City LGU, meron pong QCE services na doon po lahat makikita ang lahat ng mga services na ibinibigay ng Quezon City. And the next example is the eGov PH Super App. This mobile application consolidating various government services, including healthcare, travel, and digital ID, with over 9 million subscribers. And the next example is the National Government Portal or the NGP. This is the unified online gateway for accessing government services and the Philippine E-Government Interoperability Framework or the PEGIF. This establishes technology standards to ensure compatibility and interoperability among government systems. The next key component is the financial management and transparency. Digital tools help track government spending and manage budgets more effectively. Systems like electronic procurement or the EGPP and COA's online audit portals promote transparency, reduce corruption, and ensure that public funds are used efficiently and accountably. The Department of Budget and Management has implemented Integrated Financial Management System or the Integrated Financial Management Information System or the IFMIS. This system reduce streamline fiscal transactions and promote transparency. And the other is the Budget and Treasury Management System or the BTMS that was launched in December 2024. This system enables real-time online accounting and monitoring of government financial operations. The next key component is the legal and institutional support. Digital transformation requires clear policies, regulations, and institutions to oversee implementation. In the Philippines, the Data Privacy Act and the creation of DICT or the Department of Information and Communications Technology provide the legal and institutional foundation for e-governance. Executive orders such as EO29 and EO31 mandate the adoption of digital systems like IFMIS and institutionalize the Philippine Open Government Partnership or the PHOGP respectively. These orders aim to enhance bureaucratic efficiency and fiscal transparency. The next is the capacity building and cybersecurity. Government must train personnel and build IT capabilities to support digital systems. At the same time, they must protect digital infrastructure and citizens' data from cyber threats through frameworks like the issuance of EO number 58, adopting the National Cybersecurity Plan of 2023 to 2028. And the next is the legislative support. Effective digital governance relies on updated laws that support digital processes. In the Philippines, laws such as the Ease of Doing Business Act, the E-Commerce Act, and the proposed E-Governance Act help institutionalize digital practices and ensure legal backing for reforms. The importance of digital transformation in governance. Why is digital transformation is important? Number one is to improve public service delivery. Digital platforms allow citizens to access services remotely, reducing the need for physical visits and long queues. This is especially critical for people in remote or undeserved areas. Example of this is the Philippine government launched the eGov.ph Super App, which integrates various government services into a single digital platforms, such as renewing licenses, paying taxes, and accessing health or education services, reducing the need for in-person visits and paperwork. Pansin niyo po sa halos lahat ng mga local government units, meron na po silang mga e-portals na kahit hindi na sila magpuntas mismo dun sa City Hall, nakakapag-apply na po sila ng mga kung ano po yung kailangan nilang transactions. The next is the increased transparency and reduced corruption. Automating transactions and digitizing records minimizes human intervention, thereby reducing opportunities for corruption and fostering accountability. Initiatives like the Budget and Treasury Management System or the BTMS ensure real-time tracking of government funds. Example of this is the Commission on Audit uses digital audits and publishes reports online, helping to track how public funds are spent. The Open Data Philippines portal also allows citizens to access government datasets, promoting fiscal transparency and reducing opportunities for corruption. The next is the greater efficiency and cost saving. Digital system reduce paperwork, streamline processes, and speed up decision-making across government agencies. This saves time and government resources, making operations more cost-effective. Example is the Department of Information and Communications Technology or the DICT. It promotes digitization of government records and cloud-based system, which has helped reduce the cost of paper-based processes and physical file storage, as well as personnel-intensive workflows. And one of the example is the Civil Service Commission Online Career Service Examination. Just like what Ms. Mantillas explained a while ago, mga application natin sa civil service pwede na pong online, and then yung mga results, kahit hindi pa po natin nakukuha yung mga original certificates, pwede na po natin gamitin yung result sa ating promotion yung nanggaling sa online. Another importance of the digital transformation is the strengthened citizen engagement. Online platforms and digital tools encourage citizens to participate in governance, provide feedback, and stay informed about public programs. This helps build trust and makes governance more inclusive. Agencies like the Department of Education and Department of Health use online surveys, social media, and web portals. to consult the public on policies, curriculum changes, or the COVID-19 response. The feedback and complaints mechanism via 888 hotline and online portals also enable citizens to report issues and provide suggestions. Another is the crisis resilience and continuity. During emergencies like natural disasters or pandemics, digital platforms ensure that public services and governance functions continue with minimal disruption. The Department of Education's and the Commission on Higher Education's flexible learning programs ensured education delivery during school closures. Government agency also adopted work-from-home schemes supported by digital tools to maintain operations during lockdown. Sobrang nagamit natin the support. Number 7 is the support economic development. A digitally transformed government is more attractive to investors and better positioned to support the digital economy, fostering innovation, job creation, and competitiveness. Example of the support economic development is the TradeNet platforms, which aims to digitize and streamline import-export permits across 76 trade regulatory agencies to speed up trade and investment. Another one is the Invest Philippines portal. This is a one-stop shop for investment-related information, helping promote ease of doing business. Another importance is the compliance with global standards. Aligning with international best practices in e-governance enhances the country's global standing and improves partnerships with other governments and international institutions. Example of this is the National Cybersecurity Plan of 2022 by DICT, which aligns with international cybersecurity frameworks to protect digital infrastructure. Another is the membership in Digital Public Goods Alliance or the DPGA, promotes alignment with global digital governance norms and collaboration on open source public services. The next is the stages of digital maturity in government institutions. In today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, government institutions must undergo a systematic digital transformation to remain relevant, efficient, and responsive to citizens' needs. This transformation is not achieved overnight. It follows a progression known as the stages of digital maturity. Each stage reflects the increasing integration of digital tools, processes, and strategies within public institutions. Understanding these stages help governments assess their current capabilities, identify gaps, and strategically plan for growth. There are 5 key stages that describe this journey. One is the initial, next is the developing, define, manage, and optimize. So here are the summary of the stages of digital maturity. First stage is the initial or the ad hoc traditional. Second is the developing or the emerging digital capabilities. The third is defined, which is the systematic digitization. Fourth is the manage or integrated and data-driven. And the last stage is the optimized digital by default or transformational. I will explain further the 5 stages of the digital transformation. First is the initial or the ad hoc traditional. The initial stage, also referred to as the traditional or ad hoc phase, is marked by heavy reliance on manual, paper-based processes. At this point, government operations are often slow, siloed, and inefficient. Digital tools may be used, but they are fragmented and lack strategic alignment. Agencies at this stage may struggle with data management and have limited transparency and public engagement. This level of maturity is often typical in institutions just beginning their digital journey or in regions with limited access to digital infrastructure. Ito yung unang-unang stage ng digital transformation. Ito yung hindi pa tayo masyadong computerized, laging naka-paper-based pa tayo. Pag may hahanapin tayo, naka-folder pa siya at hanapin pa natin siya isa-isa. So the next stage is the developing stage or the emerging digital capabilities. The developing stage introduces emerging digital capabilities. Here, some processes are digitized, and basic information and communication technologies are adapted. However, digital initiatives tend to be isolated and project-based rather than part of a broader institutional strategy. Agencies at this stage begin to automate simple tasks and introduce digital platforms for limited public interaction. The lack of integration, however, means that these efforts are not yet scalable or sustainable. The next stage is the defined or the systematic digitization. Reaching the defined stage represents a significant shift. Government institutions begin to adopt a systematic approach to digitization. Digital strategies are formulated and aligned with broader institutional or national goals. ICT systems are standardized and data begins to be used more effectively across departments. Internal processes are increasingly automated and integrated, allowing for improved operational efficiency and better service delivery. At this stage, agency become more capable of meeting citizen needs through digital means. Sa defined stage, dito na yung digital transformation na pwede na tayong mag-send sa mga emails, madali na tayong nakakatanggap ng mga letters from other offices or other departments. Hindi katulad dati na sa first stage or the sa initial stage, papadala mo through letter or through mail. And the next stage is the fourth stage is the manage or the integrated and data-driven. The managed stage marks the integration of digital systems across departments and the use of data to drive decisions and performance. Government starts to adopt more advanced technologies such as cloud computing and data analytics. Digital platforms for service delivery become robust with user-friendly interfaces and feedback mechanisms. Public trust improve as transparency, accountability, and responsiveness increase. Cross-agency collaboration is enhanced through interoperable systems, making service delivery more seamless and efficient. And the last stage is the optimize or the digital by default transformational. Finally, the optimized stage represents the highest level of digital maturity. At this point, government institutions operate with digital by default mindset. Technology is embedded into every aspect of governance, from policy making to service design and execution. Advanced tools like artificial intelligence, big data, and predictive analytics are used to anticipate citizen needs and improve service outcomes. Citizen engagement becomes more proactive and inclusive as services are designed with user input and delivered across multiple digital channels. Institutions at this stage are agile, innovative, and capable of continuous improvement. In conclusion, the journey through the stages of digital maturity is essential for modern governance. It reflects a shift from reactive, inefficient system to proactive, citizen-centric services powered by digital innovation. For countries like the Philippines, Understanding and progressing through these stages can help bridge the digital divide, promoting inclusive development and ensure that governance keeps pace with the demands of a digitally connected society. The next continued report will be Mr. Christian Olasiman, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miss Geraldine. Pa-share na lang po ng presentation. Thank you.
Audible na po.
So good afternoon, everyone. My discussion will look into digital transformation in governance. When we look at the overview of this, as what was also discussed earlier, digital transformation in governance is the set of policies, procedures, and guidelines that govern the process of digital transformation within an organization. It also includes the management and control of digital initiatives and ensures that the organization's investments in digital technologies align with its overall strategic objectives. Good governance in digital transformation is essential to prevent and mitigate digital transformation risk. And we are aware that in our discussions, even in the previous reporters, that there is a role that digital transformation aims to play in ensuring that there is good governance in public service. When we look at it further, digital transformation in governance also refers to the integration of digital technologies to enhance the efficiency, transparency, and accessibility of government services. While earlier in the previous reports, there are studies and examples of initiatives and projects and services done in several government agencies in the Philippines with regards to the use of e-governance or digital technology in their programs. Here are some of the case studies of successful digital transformation in government in other countries that we can also learn from. The following are globally recognized countries that serve as benchmarks for digital government, presented as a refined and high impact selection of standout success stories. First is Estonia, which is considered as the gold standard of digital nations. Why does it stand out? Because it's a fully digital society with at least 99% of services online, to include digital ID system and e-residency. Citizens can vote, citizens can pay taxes and start businesses online all in a few minutes. And they also use blockchain for data integrity in health, legal, and security sectors. Later in my presentation, we will discuss what blockchain is all about because this is one of the new emerging technologies in relation to digital transformation. And the key results of these developments in Estonia is that it helps saves up to at least 2% of the GDP annually in administrative efficiency. There is also high citizen trust in its government and high citizen participation. The mere fact that you can vote online, you can pay taxes online, and start businesses online would encourage more of their citizens to actually participate in several engagements with government in both even in private holistic smart city in terms of its approach. Um, there is the use of digital transformation in its transport system, in its healthcare, in finance, and in public safety. There is also open data initiatives and strong cybersecurity frameworks to ensure data protection. And there is also the concept of digital identity through SingPass and e-payment systems that are integrated nationwide in many of its services. So the key results would lead to world-class public service delivery and increase in foreign investments and enhance quality of life and urban sustainability. Third is Denmark. Why does it stand out? Because citizens by law must interact with government digitally. Ibig sabihin, based on the law that is being implemented in the country, citizens are mandated to interact with their government digitally. And there is also a unified citizen portal and a secure digital post for everyone to access, and a transparent data privacy regulations that help build public trust. The result of this is that they are also able to save hundreds of millions of euros annually. Denmark also ranks number one in the United Nations e-government development index, and there is a high user satisfaction and accessibility because of all these being offered to their citizens. Number four is the United Kingdom through the gov.uk and digital service standards. Why does it stand out? Because there is a one-stop shop wherein they have consolidated thousands of government websites. Ibig sabihin, hindi ka na kailangan pumunta sa iba't iba pang mga websites at iba't ibang mga links because they have a one-stop shop that consolidated all of this in just one portal. Next is the gov.uk, which helps verify and also enables secure, fast identity verification and an agile development culture that is adopted across different departments of their government. So the key results of this, they are also able to save billions through digital efficiencies. They also are able to simplify access to services for citizens and their businesses, and they set global standards in terms of public service design. Number five is South Korea with their e-government pioneer. Why do they stand out? Because they have advanced public data systems and citizen-centric applications. They also have smart city initiatives. They also have technology in terms of disaster response and also online education, including a comprehensive e-participation platforms for Koreans to access. The results of this, they are recognized by the United Nations as a leader in e-government. There is also fast response to emergencies to include their experience during the COVID-19 pandemic through their COVID-19 tracking system and a high-speed digital infrastructure that is embedded nationwide. So in summary, the countries of Estonia, Singapore, Denmark, UK, and South Korea are able to achieve digital first society, a smart nation initiative, a digital by default governance in Denmark, the government.uk platform in the United Kingdom, and a citizen-centric e-government in South Korea. The impact of this is efficiency and global and becoming a global model, improve livability and competitiveness in the country of Singapore, cost savings and accessibility for Denmark, simplification and savings also for the United Kingdom, and responsiveness and infrastructure for South Korea. Now we go to digital public services and citizen-centric governance. In digital public services and and the use of technology, it can help deliver government services online, making them more accessible, efficient, and responsive to citizen needs. And citizen-centric governance prioritizes the convenience, the inclusion, and empowerment of our people or our constituents. So what are the key features of this? Number one is accessibility. Because it is digital and it is online, it can provide 24/7 availability of services regardless of your location. Next is efficiency because it offers faster processing and reduced paperwork because we know that if it's digital, it's faster and there is less paperwork. So halos paperless po yung mga transactions. And then there is also transparency because there is open data and digital tracking of government actions. So mas klaro po kung ano nangyayari sa mga applications po natin, mga service yung ina-access natin. We're able to track all of these government actions and the status of the services we're accessing from government. And there is also inclusivity because the services being offered are designed for all, including marginalized groups. And there is also personalization. It is tailored. The services are tailored based on the citizen data and your preferences. So what are the benefits of a digital public service and citizen-centric governance? It saves time and resources for both the citizens and the government. And when we look at the models discussed earlier in the UK and Denmark, for example, they are able to save billions of money um, by being digital. And next, it also helps build public trust through transparency and accountability because of open data. It also improves public engagement and participation because services now becomes more accessible. And by law, for example, in Denmark, they are mandated to transact with their government digitally. And it also encourages innovation and continuous service improvement. For example, disaster response among many others. So examples of this like what I said earlier, in Estonia, residency, digital voting, and e-tax services, which I think in the Philippines, may mga e-tax services na rin po tayo for some local governments. In Singapore, Life SG application offers live event-based services. And in the Philippines, our eGov PH Super App centralizes access to government services. Next, are new and emerging technologies. We will first discuss AI in digital governance or artificial intelligence. AI in digital governance refers to the use of artificial intelligence technologies such as machine learning, natural language processing, and automation to improve public service delivery and policy making and citizen engagements. So what are the benefits of this? The benefits of AI in digital governance would cover efficiency and automation because it speeds up services and reduces manual work. It's also data driven in terms of decision making. It provides insights for better policies and resource allocation. And it also helps in cost savings. It cuts administrative expenses through automation. There's also better citizen services because there are AI chatbots and tools being offered that provides public service 24/7. And there's also transparency and accountability as it tracks public spending and prevents corruption, which are very vital in good governance. And it also helps in enhanced security because it strengthens cybersecurity and public safety systems. It's also scalable because it easily adapts to growing demands and emergencies. And it also provides predictive insights such as forecasts in relation to disasters and health crisis and even weather for early action. And it promotes innovation, such as it drives smart solutions for modern um, and digital government services. To discuss it further, um, when we look at AI, it's also very, very important to understand how AI is also being applied in several instances in the Philippines. There are AI-powered virtual assistants, such as being used by the Department of Trade and Industry and SSS for answering frequently asked questions, guiding users through online services, and reducing hotline congestions. There are also chatbots that help extend service coverage 24/7 and improve user experience. And AI is also being applied in public health and social services. There are AI-assisted data analytics that are being used to optimize the distribution of healthcare resources and identify, for example, COVID-19 hotspots during the pandemic. AI is also being explored to enhance targeting in social protection programs like 4Ps or the Pantawid Pamilyang Filipino program of DSWD. AI is also being used in the Department of Education as it explores adaptive learning platforms to customize content based on the student learning patterns. And it's also being utilized in transportation and traffic. LGUs such as Cebu City and Taguig are piloting smart traffic systems that use AI to analyze congestion and adjust traffic light timing in real time. Um, so these are some of the things that are being utilized through AI in the Philippines. But there are also challenges, such as AI is projected to be biased, and there is also concern in terms of automated decisions, limited technical capacity in government agencies, and data governance and ethical AI frameworks are still evolving as of press time. Going back to AI, so we look into other agencies that would utilize it, such as the Department of Science and Technology through their Project Sarai, or the Smarter Approaches to Reinvigorate Agriculture as an Industry, which uses AI to provide farmers with crop forecast, weather predictions, and pest monitoring. So nakakatulong din po ito sa ating mga magsasaka in terms of looking into weather predictions na iwasan yung mga malakas na ulan or nakakapaghanda sa bagyo, and at the same time looking at the possibility of the spread of certain pests and how to monitor them. The DTI is also using AI-driven business matching. They use AI algorithms to match local MSMEs with potential investors and markets. The Philippine National Police, even in local governments such as here in Zamboanga City, may mga ginagamit din po tayong mga facial recognition systems wherein AI is used in security surveillance and facial recognition for law enforcement. Halimbawa po neto, mga wanted terrorists and members of, for example, the Abu Sayyaf, for example, yung mga photos po nila, their facial photographs are being encoded into an AI system. And habang nagmo-monitor po yung mga CCTV cameras, they also use facial recognition systems to help track, for example, baka nandyan lang po at naglalakad sa mga public parks and spaces po natin, yung mga wanted na mga individuals or persons po at nahuhuli po natin yon. And then the Bureau of Customs also use AI for cargo inspection, uses AI-powered X-ray machines to detect smuggled or suspicious goods. DOH, for example, nabanggit ko kanina, the use of AI in health monitoring, such as disease surveillance, hindi lamang nung pandemic, but even predictive modeling also. And disaster risk reduction also, the use of advanced science and technology to improve disaster forecasting and early warning systems. Next po is blockchain in digital governance. When we look at blockchain, this is a decentralized, secure, and transparent digital ledger technology that records transactions across multiple computers, enhancing trust and accountability in public sector processes. So blockchain provides secure, transparent, and immutable data storage, making it ideal for government applications. So how do we benefit from blockchain in digital governance? It enhances transparency because it reduces corruption and improves trust in government processes. It is also very helpful in data security because it protects sensitive information against cyber threats. It also aims to help in efficient service delivery because it speeds up the verification processes and reduces paperwork and supports financial inclusion. It enables secure, low-cost financial transactions for unbanked populations in the country. And what are the current applications of blockchain in digital governance? We look into DICT, or the Department of Information and Communications Technology, wherein the digital ID and security initiatives would use blockchain. They are exploring blockchain for secure, tamper-proof digital identity verification and data security frameworks. The Bureau of Customs also would utilize blockchain in trade facilitation. They are now doing pilot testing of blockchain to streamline customs clearance, reduce smuggling, and improve transparency and trade processes. The Land Registration Authority also utilizes blockchain in their property records modernization, as they consider blockchain to create immutable, transparent records for land titles to prevent fraud and disputes. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, through their digital currency and financial inclusion, studying blockchain also for central bank digital currency and enhancing financial services accessibility. But there are also challenges when we look at blockchains, such as infrastructure readiness, hindi pa po handa yung other areas and other government agencies to embrace it. And there is also the need to provide platforms for our people to be more learned in terms of digital literacy because there are gaps in the process, and the need for regulatory framework that should be developed in relation to the application of blockchain in digital governance. Now we proceed to IoT in digital governance. When we look at IoT, this would mean Internet of Things in digital governance. IoT refers to interconnected devices and sensors that collect, share, and analyze data to improve public services and government operations. In IoT, it, like what I said, it refers to the use of interconnected devices and sensors to either collect, share, and analyze data to help improve government operations. And what are its key applications in government? Number one is smart traffic management, real-time monitoring of traffic to reduce congestion. Nabanggit rin po natin kanina na yung mga timers po ng mga traffic light system natin, hindi na siya nakabase sa oras, but nakabase siya sa volume ng traffic sa kung anong location ng intersection, at mas na-address po ng mas matalinong paraan yung traffic in these areas. So there's real-time monitoring of the congestion. And then disaster risk reduction, for example, because there are sensors for flood detection, earthquake monitoring, and early warning systems, such as in our river systems, in landslide-prone areas, for example. And ngayon po yung earthquake monitoring natin, napaka bilis na rin. Pagka may mga earthquakes, meron na kaagad mga warning na natatanggap na babasa din po kaagad yung lakas, for example, at anong areas po yung possible na affected po. at experience mo po ng mga aftershocks. And then smart energy management, it optimizes public energy consumption and monitors our grids, whether there is low power or high power source, for example. In Mindanao, for example, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines would also use smart energy management technologies to monitor the available power and demand, for example, to make sure that the supply meets the demand and address the power gaps at mas malalessen po yung mga brownouts in several areas that they are servicing. And then next is also public safety and surveillance. IoT-enabled CCTV and sensors for crime prevention and emergency response are also being used to include waste management. So smart bins and route optimization for waste collection, doon din po nagagamit yung IoT. So what are the benefits of IoT in digital governance? There's real-time decision making dahil real-time rin po yung kanilang monitoring. So faster government response based on real-time data. And if there is faster government response, we are saving lives, we're also saving resources, and we are also providing good governance to our people. And then there are also efficiency gains. Automated monitoring reduces manual processes. Enhanced public safety would also mean there are immediate alerts and proactive interventions that would ensure the safety of our people and resource optimization. There is better management of our utilities and our public resources. So na-address po yung corruption and red tape in government. So this ends my presentation po. Thank you for listening.